Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online series 10 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today is the start of a brand new ranked season, and of course we're still playing Series 10, but we are going to be reset in terms of our ranking. So, I've been trying out a lot of different restricted Pokemon, and in the more recent weeks I feel like I've cycled through a couple, so I wanted to try to feature some brand new ones, and we actually haven't used Yveltal on the channel yet, so I figured this would be the perfect time to feature it. Of course, with the last ranked season ending as well, lots of players have been posting their teams, especially those who are high ranked, and so wanted to feature this one, who was built by a Japanese player who goes by Yugi. I've linked their Twitter down in the description below. The team is really cool and is mainly centered around Weakness Policy Yveltal combined with Comfey. Now, my opinion with Yveltal hasn't changed very much from the beginning of the season, and that's that it is a very kind of high skill cap Pokemon, in the sense that it is pretty difficult to use, right? I think Pokemon like Kyogre and Zacian are a little bit more intuitive, and they're just, especially like the teams that they're typically on, allow for them to succeed a little bit more easily. Whereas with Yveltal, for example, it's walled by a lot of Pokemon and actually struggles into certain restricted Pokemon like Zacian and Xerneas, both which are really common. So you're not necessarily just going to get free wins when you use Yveltal. Not that you'll get free wins with any restricted, but I think it's basically a little bit harder to execute, and so it's probably not as, I'd say, beginner friendly as some of the other restricted Pokemon. However, this Pokemon has so much potential, especially because Yveltal is, one of the bulkier restricteds. It can, heal up with Oblivion Wing. So much about it is positioning, and so yeah, I think this Pokemon can be tough to execute, but when used properly, can look really, really darn good. And so, yeah, this was a really high-ranked Yveltal team from the last season, and Weakness Policy is, fairly common. You'll see Weakness Policy, Black Glasses, Life Orb, AV, those are all viable items on Yveltal. And the main thing about it is to note that, yeah, you don't have that much good coverage, so you're really relying on your Dark and Flying type attacks, right? And so Comfey is a really nice partner because you can obviously activate that Weakness Policy with that Draining Kiss, but also heal it up with Floral Healing, which is really neat. Comfey plus Weakness Policy users in general have been really common. Weakness Policy, not as common as it was in previous formats with the lack of Dynamax, but Yveltal's bulky enough where you do have the room to take super effective hits and then still continue to deal large amounts of damage. So that's going to be the main core. You've got Rocky, Helmet Amoonguss here. This thing is just such a good switch in into any physical attack, but specifically Urshifu, Water Urshifu. You can deal basically half their health just with the Amoonguss switch in, while you take basically no damage and then heal back up with Regenerator. Spore, Rage Powder, Protector, all classic, and then Clear Smog's valuable into all the setup that exists in the format. Landorus-T here is pretty standard with the Scarf variant, but it also has Earth Power. And so Earth Power is something that a lot of Lando-Ts, it's actually, I would say, very common in this format. You should expect it on every Lando-T, and that specifically helps into the Stakataka matchup. Finally, you've got Incineroar and Tapu Fini. Obviously, these Pokemon are pretty common, but the sets are actually very different from what you might be used to seeing. This is an AV Incineroar with Close Combat. It actually doesn't have a Dark type attack. And the main reason it doesn't have a Dark type attack is because you already have Yveltal on the team. So, typically Incineroar with AV, you'll want to run something like a Throat Chop or a Darkest Lariat for Calyrex Shadow Rider. But Yveltal itself is such a good matchup into kind of the Pokemon that typically you would want Dark type attacks into with Incineroar. You can actually afford to drop it. Close Combat, dramatically improves your matchup into certain Pokemon. For example, first of all, it helps you deal large amounts of damage to opposing Incineroars. That's actually pretty important because, like Comfey, Amoonguss can't do very much into it. Yveltal can Oblivion Wing it, but it's not really that much damage, even if you have the Weakness Policy set up, to be honest, because Incin's so bulky. And so Close Combat's just a nice extra burst of offense, and you have room to not run like a Darkest Lariat or a Throat Chop. And then finally, you've got Light Screen, Nature's Madness, Leftovers, Tapu Fini. I love Nature's Madness on this Fini specifically because it's just super good and can, stay on the field for a long time and just get guaranteed damage onto things that you otherwise would not do like 50% to, right? Something like Incineroar, for example, is a great example where, if you could be running something like Scald or Muddy Water, but it's just a little bit less consistent. And what I love about Nature's Madness is that there's very few opportunities to safely switch in something, right? When you see Fini, you typically expect, okay, it's gonna go for Moonblast or Muddy Water or Scald. Well, Nature's Madness basically just covers for any switch in and allows you to make really safe plays with Tapu Fini. Now, obviously, you do risk potentially missing the attack, but that being said, it's a decent trade-off, right? 90% of the time, you're going to deal half of your opponent's HP to them. So I think that's really valuable. Ultimately, with this Yveltal, there is opportunity to get some sweeps. Yveltal is a pretty matchup-oriented restricted, so we'll see what we go up against. I definitely would prefer to play more Calyrex-S than, say, Xerneas or Zacians, but this team also has plenty of answers into the common restricteds, right? For example, against Zacian, you have dual Intimidate with Landorus and Incineroar, and you have faster Landorus, meaning you can Intimidate it. You can even lead like Lando Yveltal and just go like EQ and like Oblivion Wing. Try to get rid of its partner. Instant as a switch is valuable as well. Nature's Madness is helpful for chipping away at Zacian. And then for Xerneas, you know, you have, for example, Light Screen on the Tapu Fini. You've got the Amoonguss, which in general is really good into the Xerneas matchup. So even against the restricteds that maybe match up better into Yveltal, the team has plenty of answers to help you against those. And that is typically what a well-constructed Yveltal team needs. So let's get started with today's episode. Thanks so much as always for watching. If you enjoy, please share your support by leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, with the brand new ranked season, I want to know what your goal is for the season. And so for me, it's just continuing to try out brand new teams, brand new restricteds. We checked off a fair amount, but now it's time to maybe dive into some of the less common restricted Pokemon, while also trying to feature some cool teams built around more, the more common restricteds. But we'll see, what we feature in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, thanks so much as always for watching. So let's get started. All right, getting into the first game here. First of all, I thought this was just a pretty fun number of ranking that we ended up with after the last season, 151 on the dot, so that was pretty neat. But yeah, looking forward to just climbing up and trying brand new archetypes. There's still a ton of restricted Pokemon we haven't tried. As you may have seen when I did Series 8 content, my goal really was to feature as many restricted Pokemon as possible, tried out a wide variety, and yeah, hoping to do the same here. So eventually I'd like to try to get, at least one team featuring every restricted Pokemon at some point, at least all the serious ones. So yep, let's get into the first one of the day. Feels fitting that we're up against the team that we had just used. Okay. Very interesting. So Comfey, Yveltal, Fini are without a doubt very important here. And then probably Incin. I think those four make a lot of sense. Amoonguss is awkward in this matchup. Landorus-T not bad. It does have Earth Power. What am I most nervous about? Maybe Torkoal plus the Lilligant because of Sleep Powder shenanigans? If you go Torkoal plus Lilligant, though, I could just activate Weakness Policy and Sucker Punch. I have Snarl as well. Light Screen's actually really good for us here on Fini, so maybe I want to consider leading that. We certainly have options. Okay, you know what? Incineroar is actually not bad. I like Incin Fini with Comfey and Yveltal in the back. Yeah. Lando and Amoonguss are both, like, you actually could make a good argument for them, but I don't necessarily want to bring them here quite yet, so, yeah. And I think the goal here, first of all, Yveltal is pretty darn good into my opponent's team overall. The main thing about Yveltal is really knowing when to Oblivion Wing, because with Yveltal, you really want to heal yourself up consistently. They're going to go to Necrozma plus Indeedee. Okay. So with Incineroar, I am AV here, so we might be able to take a Meteor Beam, but ideally we bait out the Meteor Beam. Okay, unfortunately we are going to lose the Terrain War, so that's the slight downside of leading Fini. That's okay. I think I want to Light Screen with Fini here, and then probably switch Incineroar out, like I said, ideally baiting a Meteor Beam. Indeedee is going to be faster than Incineroar. I want to double check the instant speed, but I'm pretty sure we're going to outspeed the Necrozma here. Like, especially because we don't have a dark type attack here. Oh, actually, I guess I could just go Light Screen into U-turn for free damage. That also works. Because we should outspeed Necrozma here, right? I'm just double check the speed. 84, yeah. And I'm pretty sure the Necrozma was like 70s. So U-turn into Indeedee and go for a Light Screen, I think, is a fine start for us. Comfey comes out. Then I'll probably, like, if we can bait out Meteor Beam, then my opponent has no damage output into Incineroar with the current field state. So that was one of the main things that I think we got really fortunate with when we were using the Necrozma team. Like, a lot of our opponents kind of just walked into the Meteor Beams. Okay, so they're going to get Side Shock off. Really doesn't do that much damage. And yep, we get U-turn off. Brilliant. Unfortunately, first, we don't have a dark type attack on the Incineroar. If we did, this would actually be a much easier matchup, but it's still okay. I don't want to go out into Yveltal here. I'll go into Comfey. Even if they, don't go for Meteor Beam immediately, that's fine. I don't really mind. The main thing here is just trying to bait that out, and I don't want... And they go for it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, this is great. So while they get the special attack boost, like I have Light Screen up, so I'm not going to take that much. I have Nature's Madness, and then I can, you know, I'm just aiming to pivot out Yveltal and eventually. The other key thing is actually now they have no damage output into Yveltal. So this next turn, I can actually hard switch Fini out into the Yveltal immediately, and then just go for Draining Kiss. Yeah. I like that a lot, actually. So we're just going to go straight for Draining Kiss here onto Fini and then switch this out into Yveltal. And now they don't have a Wide Guard user out on the field, so I can just spam Sucker Punch in subsequent turns. Now, we know that there's potentially Stakataka and Torkoal in the back. Big question here is, does Necrozma set up Trick Room this turn? If not, things might get awkward for them. But either way, I think, you know, Yveltal is obviously pretty tricky, restricted for Necrozma to go up against. It's one of the ones that I struggle with against the most while playing against it. Okay, so we're going to get Yveltal out. They're going to go for Helping Hand. Probably just Helping Hand Expanding Force. I'm not sure if Comfey can take that, but even if it doesn't, it's fine. Because I just get a free switch into Fini, and then we can go from there. Actually, I might want to go into Incineroar instead. Because I'd probably Snarl into... I'd want to KO the Necrozma, ideally. Oh, they actually go for Moongeist Beam. Okay, that's fine. I'm not sure this KO's Comfey. It is +1, Helping Hand. We have Light Screen up. Oh, they actually target Yveltal. Okay, perfect. That's the dream. Because now, we can just go for Floral Healing onto this. I could also just Helping Hand Snarl. I can't help but wonder whether or not that's enough for a KO. I think I'm fine with Floral Healing, though. It's so safe. And just to get Yveltal back up to full is so nice for us right now. So, yeah. I'm going to just heal and Snarl. Now, the downside for this Yveltal is that our two Dark-type attacks are Snarl and Sucker Punch, and it's actually a Brave Yveltal, so it will be kind of awkward in terms of using our Dark-type attacks. But, you know, if we knock out the Indeedee, that gets out of the way. And then with Indeedee out of the way, you have no more terrain control, meaning I can just switch in Fini and then cleanly Sucker Punch at any point. So perfect, yeah, they go for Follow Me here. So, like, you know, our other play here was... Oh, I guess we could have gone for Oblivion Wing as well, but this is just such a safe play, honestly. And that's actually just a double KO. Wow. So, this was the perfect game for Yveltal to get set up, but we did have to play a little bit carefully. And the main thing is baiting out that Meteor Beam, because once you commit Meteor Beam on Necrozma, you're a lot weaker into some of the dark types in the format, like Incineroar and Yveltal. So it's going to be Torkoal. I expect Torkoal stack. Lilligant would be really cool here. Okay, it is actually Lilligant. Lilligant's fine, mainly because at this point, your only way to come back really is through... Like, I'm at full HP. So they're probably going to Sleep Powder us, but that's fine. Let's see, what do we have here? Oh, I could just Helping Hand Sucker Punch here. Yeah, I think I'm down for that. It would be a Helping Hand +2 Sucker Punch, and we know my opponent is Choice Specs on Torkoal, because obviously we used the team just recently. So there's basically no way Torkoal can protect itself from this. I don't know if it's a KO. If not, then, I don't know, maybe we could switch into Fini, but even if we switch into Fini... That's why I should have switched into Fini. Right. To change the terrain. I totally forgot about Psychic Terrain. And they're going to go for Heat Wave. That's fine. Yeah, that doesn't do much damage. It's so funny. I initially was like, okay, we should switch into Fini in my head to change the terrain, but then I forgot about the terrain being a factor. That's okay, though. We can just go out into Fini now. It just makes this endgame a little bit more drawn out, but obviously I should have remembered that. Yeah. That's okay, though. The reality is with Light Screen and with AV Incineroar in the back and then locked into Heat Wave, they're not going to be able to beat the Incineroar at this point. But I just completely forgot about Psychic Terrain for a quick second, so it's always good to double check on things like that. But we have built up such a big lead that I feel like there's not much that can really go wrong at this point. Even if we take 3 turns of sleep on Yveltal, I just don't think you're beating Incin plus Fini when the terrain is up and with AV. 124 down to 45. That's actually really good damage. Was that a crit? Not even. Not bad. So Lilligant can now go for Grass Knot. Light Screen wears off. That's fine. I am just going to go for Protect here. And then Sucker Punch into Lilligant. We want to sack the Yveltal, get Incin for free, so then I can just fake out Light Screen again. And then Incin Fini closes it out. But, yeah. One thing that I miss about the older gens is that, like, the terrain would be a little bit more pronounced. You know, it would take up the entire field, whereas with Psychic Terrain, like, and the terrains in general in this game, it's a little bit harder to see. So yeah, I'm not sure +2 Sucker Punch would have knocked out Torkoal anyway. But yeah, the main thing is that even with Misty Terrain up, you can still put Yveltal to sleep. But Sucker Punch was guaranteed damage onto Torkoal there. Either way, though, Incin plus Fini was always going to be like the end game that we can really play easily towards. So now we just get Incin out. Fake out Light Screen is fine. Torkoal is choice locked into Heat Wave. They're running out of turns of Sun as well, and then Comfey can basically infinitely heal in the late game as well. So it just makes the game go on for a little bit longer. But my opponent's obviously playing towards their outs. But very little reason not to fake out Light Screen here. As soon as Lilligant faints, I mean, like, Torkoal's just doing no damage. Especially with Light Screen, right? So there's Fake Out, there's the Flinch, there's Light Screen again. Now it's like even if you crit, you just have no way to actually hit the Incineroar. And that was one of the tough things about using the Necrozma team. It's like, that's why Stakataka and Mienshao are on the team comp, by the way, right? Because you really need those for damage output into things like Incin. And it's like, if you don't get the Meteor Beam off, you're in kind of a tricky position. So I'll just Nature's Madness here and Flare Blitz, but yeah. You know, this is a good example of a game where you have room to make mistakes in Pokemon, but there's no reason to make that mistake with the Psychic Terrain, right? That's just like a very outright blunder. They're gonna Grass Knot here. Even if they crit, it's fine. Yeah, you just like can't deal damage at this point. Nature's Madness connects. And the nice thing here is having Fini, honestly, especially because my opponent's team is more specially oriented, and to be honest, it's very difficult for them to bring their physical attackers. So I think, you know, their Pokemon choice made a lot of sense. We just had the perfect setup for Yveltal, and they didn't bring any Wide Guard users as well, which made things a lot easier for us. If you have Wide Guard, things get a little bit more awkward, because I at least have to think twice about clicking Snarl, and then it means I'm relying on Oblivion Wing or Sucker Punch. But ultimately, I think we just have a really good matchup into my opponent's team. Obviously, we just feature that, and I have full information of their sets as well, right? So it gives me a little bit more room to play with. For example, knowing the Necrozma is Meteor Beam. I mean, that's the most common Necrozma set, but knowing its min speed as well, you know, makes it a little bit easier to play out. So we can just go for another Madness and Close Combat, and that should be... Actually, I'm not sure Close Combat finishes off. Torkoal's defense is actually pretty high, but yeah. I think ultimately it was really tough for my opponent to play the game, and there wasn't much that they could have done once the game started after turn 2. They basically, like, this is an example where, like, you maybe have to bring a different Pokemon outright. Stakataka, for example, at least has Wide Guard pressure. Okay, CC does do enough. So it's like if you bring Stakataka, at least you do have Wide Guard potential. But basically, as soon as I got rid of Meteor Beam on turn 1 and pivoted Yveltal in, they couldn't make any safe switch-ins. Snarl was just going to do massive amounts of damage to everything, and there's no Protect on the Indeedee or the Necrozma, so it's just a tough game for them to play. Like, I think they basically did everything in their power after turn 2, and even with us making, you know, the slight blunder forgetting about Psychic Terrain, like, it was just such a big lead and such a matchup advantage that, you know, even if they play perfectly, they're just very limited in their options. So, yeah. That's an example of a game where it's just a little bit tough for my opponent to do very much because the matchup is really shaky, and it's like, yeah, we were AV on Incineroar as well, but you know, most Incineroars aren't, and so when I was playing with the Necrozma team, I would almost always try to Meteor Beam Incineroar immediately to try to get rid of it because it's such a big threat, right? And so it's really tough for my opponent to conserve Meteor Beam for the perfect position, but it worked out super, super well for us. And then also knowing that they were so slow, you know, allowed me to make that Light Screen play with more confidence, allowing Comfey to get in safely. And then they could have knocked out Comfey with the Amoonguss Beam rather than do damage onto Yveltal, but even if they had done that, I just get a free switch into Fini, and then I can just Snarl away. So, yeah, Yveltal is just really, really good into that team composition, so, yeah. And that's the thing about Yveltal, right? I feel like it's very high skill cap once again. It's just can struggle a little bit into some of the more common restricteds like Zacian and Xerneas, but this team certainly has answers into all of those. So let's look for our next match here. All right, second game of the day, and it's up against Xerneas, and everything looks really standard until you get to the Blaziken. So that's really cool to see. Xerneas, okay. I mean, Xerneas is obviously not a great matchup for Yveltal. When I was talking about, you know, restricted like give us some trouble, that's going to be on top of the list. Yveltal is actually amazing into the rest of my opponent's team because of Oblivion Wing. And actually, they don't have a single flying resist, so that, you know, can be helpful for us. See, with Comfey, we have Helping Hand. Amoonguss with Spore here is generally going to be valuable. I can bring Fini, but the awkward thing about bringing Fini is if I do set up the terrain, so I need to put Xerneas to sleep beforehand. The other question is, can I fit Comfey in? Because I do want Fini for Light Screen. But how much does Light Screen really help, to be honest? Like, I feel like going for Incineroar plus Amoonguss is fine. Yveltal in the back for sure. I just lack so much damage if I don't bring Yveltal. I don't think it's Lando here. So that's Comfey or Fini. Fini is actually very interesting because of Nature's Madness here. But I'm going to go with Comfey because it's just a way to set up Yveltal a little bit better. But I think you could actually make a very good argument for not bringing the Comfey here and bringing Fini instead. So I don't think this is the easiest matchup. I mean, the thing with Yveltal is that like you just do super well into certain restricteds, and then it has like a very suboptimal matchup into others. So that's where it's like not about the Yveltal specifically then, but then about its partners a little bit more. This is the lead I was kind of expecting though, so I'm alright with this. Instant Xerneas from their end. So then it's like I pressure with Fake Out and Spore onto their Xerneas to start off the game. Question is, whose Incineroar is faster? Because if mine is... Okay, it's theirs. I was going to say, if mine is, it's actually very free for me to Fake Out Instant and then Spore Xern. But here, Instant can only Fake Out one of my two Pokemon. I'm just worried about Taunt on the Incineroar. If they have Taunt, this becomes a very different match. What are the odds they have Taunt? Honestly, I feel like pretty high, but I'm not sure. The play of me going for Fake Out onto Xerneas and Spore is just like entirely too obvious. But with Xerneas, you can never really give it any room to set up. Oh, I have Clear Smog actually. That changes a lot. So for that reason, I'm down to just play this, make the safe play turn 1. Because even if they Geomancy turn 2, we'll just Clear Smog it, even if there's Taunt on Incineroar. So I guess your play now is to actually... Okay, yeah, we just trade Fake Outs. That's fine. And we have Rocky Helmet. So this is actually perfect. And I didn't talk about Clear Smog very much going into this matchup. But it's honestly probably going to be the game changer here. The question is whether or not I want to Clear Smog this turn, because I don't want to reveal it in case they protect Xerneas and then pivot like Amoonguss out. Or sorry. Like, it's so risky to just Geomancy with Xerneas this turn, because you risk a Spore. I'm going to U-turn out here for sure. It's just whether or not I want to Spore into the Incineroar slot instead. And I think I'm down for that. Because I would protect Xern here and either Flare Blitz or pivot out the Incineroar into something like Blaziken to threaten Amoonguss. And even if Xerneas gets the Geomancy setup, it's not the end of the world. Okay, perfect. They're going to swap out into their own Amoonguss. Okay, great. This is great. And they Parting Shot, meaning I get a free Spore off into whatever's coming in, and I'm hoping that's Xerneas. The other thing about Clear Smog is you want to be careful about when to reveal it, because had I gone for it now, then my opponent would be a lot more careful in when they click Geomancy. So I'm assuming Xern comes back in. It could be their fourth, but I'd be happy with anything, because I get a free Spore off, and that, like, they can't do any damage to us next turn, and that's in itself really critical. I also reset the Intimidate on my Incineroar. My Incineroar is actually going to be a really important offensive tool in this game, because they do not have... we'd have to eliminate their Incineroar first, but once we do, Flare Blitz just does a ton, and we have Assault Vest as well. So this is perfect. They bring Xerneas back in. Yep. It's just so risky to stay in with your Xerneas there, because you are just at risk of getting hit by a Spore. That indicates to me their Incineroar does not have Taunt, otherwise you would Taunt Geomancy there, in my opinion. So this is where Fini actually would have been very helpful for us, but that's fine. I'll just bring out Yveltal now. Okay. So we get Spore off. If I had Fini, then I can just start going for Nature's Madness super easily. Still fine. I mean, I really like our position, but playing around this Amoonguss is a little bit awkward right now. Especially because I don't have a Spore switch in. I mean, I do have something that threatens Amoonguss with a lot of damage with Oblivion Wing, but I don't think Oblivion Wing's KOing. I should also assume Amoonguss has Pollen Puff, so it doesn't mean, even if I, like, you know, do damage in a Xerneas, they might just be able to heal all of it back up, which is kind of awkward. I mean, if we eliminate their Xerneas, though, they're in such a bad spot. Okay, I'm actually down to just Oblivion Wing and Clear Smog Xern here. Because I can see Amoonguss protecting Fearing Yveltal. Okay, they don't protect. But that's fine. Well, I guess it depends on how much Oblivion Wing, Clear Smog do. Okay, it's pretty good damage. I don't think Clear Smog's going to be a 2-hit KO, though, is the main problem. And they're faster, so they can Pollen Puff before us. The awkward thing is now how you play with the Xerneas, essentially. Okay, that's actually really good damage. It's quite close to a 2-hit KO, but I think they'll survive with just a Sliver. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to Clear Smog it again. If they don't get, like, max... Oh, actually, yeah, first of all, it depends on if they have Pollen Puff on Amoonguss. So let's see if they have it. Okay, we both take our turns of sleep. Oh, it's a speed tie between Amoonguss. Okay, that's good to confirm. Oh my goodness, Amoonguss actually just gets the KO there. Beautiful. That's the setup I was playing for. I just didn't know if that was a guaranteed KO, and that's a little bit risky because of the Pollen Puff. So I don't love the play that I had set up. It ended up working out perfectly. Like, the idea was basically, yeah, just knock out the Xerneas, but without knowledge of how fast my Amoonguss was relative to my opponents, that play doesn't work out super well because there's a lot of variance. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong for us in that position, right? If they end up, for example, waking up with Xerneas, they can get a Protect off. Amoonguss can Pollen Puff the Xerneas there. So everything went right for us in that position, and the play I had set myself up for played out perfectly, but in retrospect, it just wasn't super smart until we can confirm Amoonguss' speed. So I don't love that. But the thing is that Oblivion Wing from this Yveltal wasn't going to KO Amoonguss anyway. So they bring their Instant out. I'm honestly down to just stay in here right now and click Oblivion Wing. And honestly Protect in this position, because I don't want to eat a Flare Blitz, but I also don't want them to catch my... Oh, they actually end up just forfeiting. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, Xerneas is such a pivotal component to their team, but this is where Amoonguss is a perfect counter to it, right? We can Spore it, we can Clear Smog it, we have Light Screen Fini as well. Fini over Comfey, I think, was the correct decision, though, and I didn't make that call. Comfey wasn't going to do very much for us, and if I had Fini, would have had the perfect switch in earlier. This thing could have been really scary, but fortunately for us, it didn't come out. Power Up Xerneas, classic. Yep, max speed. AV Rillaboom. Pretty classic stuff here. Citrus Incineroar. Yep. Mystic Water Urshifu. Bulkier Spread. And then Mentor on Amoonguss. So they were min speed as well. Actually, because of that, yeah, I should know that at best it's a speed tie, knowing our Amoonguss spread. So that was just kind of a bad play, because Amoonguss plus Xerneas, like, Amoonguss is almost always going to have Pollen Puff on that composition. So, like, at best I was risking a speed tie. So we got a little bit lucky in this one, and I think my game plan was subpar. If I were to replay this, opening turn, I would have played the same way, like opening 2 turns. I think what I would have done differently in team preview is bring Fini over Comfey, just because I didn't realize, like, how important Amoonguss would be for them. And then Fini would just make it a lot harder for them to really do very much, and Nature's Madness is just guaranteed damage onto everything. And then we can Light Screen as well. But I didn't bring Fini into this game, so then how could I have played better in the context of this matchup, other than... I think it would have been to bait them to Geomancy. I could have gotten an Oblivion Wing into Amoonguss. The tricky thing there is I just can't knock out either of my opponent's Pokemon easily. I also could have pivoted Amoonguss out into Comfey, then gone for Self-Draining Kiss into Oblivion Wing, which probably then would have KO'd this Amoonguss. But I didn't know the Amoonguss' item at that point. Is there a common Sash user on their team? I guess you could run Sash on Urshifu, but Mystic Water is pretty common. Koba is also an item. I don't know if you see it that frequently on Amoonguss these days, but it's still something to respect as well. So, yeah. Maybe it was to actually switch in Comfey and then go for Draining Kiss. Then I'm just nervous about the Xerneas getting an early wake up. But Clear Smog makes a huge difference maker in this matchup. So, yeah. Either way, your Xerneas matchups aren't going to be super easy, but we had a little bit of good fortune in that game in terms of winning a speed tie between the Amoonguss and then Xern staying asleep for another turn. I think realistically, even if Xern woke up there, I'm not sure Moonblast is KOing Yveltal. I'd actually have to do that calc. Even if it does, our endgame would be what? Instant Amoonguss and Comfey? So we have healing with Comfey, but then they have healing with Amoonguss. So yeah, it would be a pretty awkward endgame to play out. So if they were going for Moonblaster, which I feel like is fairly likely, then had they got the one-turn wake, that could have played out very, very awkwardly as well. So yeah, I think I needed to just bring Fini in that one over the Comfey. That would have made things a lot easier for me. So let's look for our third one. Okay, going into the next match here, and it's going to be a Calyrex Shadow Rider team. Okay. I mean, Yveltal does not mind going up against that, but we have Wide Guard pressure from Stakataka. Let's not forget about terrains like I did in Game 1. Lando's Scarfed. I have to worry about Lele. I think it's probably Comfey, Instant, Fini, Yveltal. Just in what order do I want to go in? A lot of it hinges off whether or not I think they're going to lead with the... I actually think I like Yveltal plus Incin. I'm probably going to switch something out on turn 1, but it's just a relatively safe lead because I can safely pivot out with U-turn, and Incin's super good into Lele plus Calyrex. The key thing for us in this match is that we do pressure with Sucker Punch and Snarl. Yveltal is really maybe the best restricted Pokemon to have against Calyrex Shadow Rider. So it's not Calyrex Shadow Rider I'm scared about, it's its partners. And, you know, Whimsicott, Lele are both fairy types. They can deal significant amount of damage with their Moonblasts. Stakataka has Rock Slide potentially. So, yeah. Amoonguss would actually be an interesting Pokemon to consider in this matchup, but it's just pretty high risk because we might just get one-shot by a Psychic type attack. I have to really play more into the Terrain Wars there then as well, so want to be a little bit more cautious of that. So, yeah, let's see. They're going to go with Incin and Whimsicott. Okay. That's not bad. It's a very passive lead from them. So, with that... Once again, the key thing with Yveltal is it's okay to take damage if you can guarantee an Oblivion Wing. We're faster than their Incineroar as well, so that's good to know. Or it could be Speed type, but the fact we get our Intimidate off first is a good sign. I want to be a little bit careful about clicking Fake Out here because they have Lele as a switch in, so they could bypass my Fake Out potentially. Something like Fake Out onto Incineroar and just Oblivion Wing Whimsicott's really safe. Actually, yeah, because if you Moonblast, you would just activate my Weakness Policy. Okay, I am down for that. I could see Incin parting shotting and then Whimsicott going out into Lele. Then if you do that, I still get a free Oblivion Wing off, and then I can... Okay, they don't switch out. That's interesting. So what's Whim going for here? I'd love to just see Moonblast, but it's just Tailwind. That makes sense. But I'm okay with that because their team was almost always going to be faster than our side anyway. So it's like, that's not really that scary, assuming you have Lele plus Calyrex in the back. So you're Focus Sashed. They're not Sashed either. Okay. So this does give them a free switch in, but like, what do you go into? If you go into Calyrex, well, I can just switch Incin out into... Actually, I wouldn't even need to switch it out. I would just Snarl and U-turn probably. And if you go into Lele, I can just pivot out into Fini. Stakataka comes out. Okay. Huh. Now we do have close combat on Incineroar. Wow, that is not what I expected to see, but I'm okay with that, I think. I think here it's fine to just protect and then U-turn out. I mean, is Stack really going to be outspeeding Incineroar? You would need to hit a speed stat of 43, 42 to speed tie. Maybe it's better. I mean, U-turn damage is so non-important here, actually. It's probably better to just hard switch here. Okay. I'm going to just protect. Got into Fini right now. And with Fini, like, Nature's Madness Fini is so good. I love it in this format because it's just, like, this is the perfect demonstration of Nature's Madness Fini, right? My opponent has a bunch of bulky Pokemon that I can't deal with super easily otherwise. I guess Fini with Muddy Water would actually be fine in this position, but Nature's Madness also just punishes any switch, and it's guaranteed half health, right, if it hits, which is awesome. The main thing we want to avoid is like a Stakataka sweep right now. They have Thunder Punch, but that actually would have been good for us. It would have just activated a Weakness Policy. And they just Rock Slide. Okay. That is a pretty favorable outcome, I'd say. Decent damage into Fini. That's fine. What am I more scared of out of these two? Thunder Punch is interesting. We saw Fake Out Thunder Punch. Calyrex is surely going to be their fourth. So I'm down to just pivot out into Incineroar here. Honestly, do I want to? I kind of want to just stay in here. If they're going to Thunder Punch us, they're just going to activate my Weakness Policy. So I'm down for them to do that, and then just Oblivion Wing to heal it all back up. Okay. Yeah, I'll Nature's Madness Stakataka and just stay in here. I'm fine with you Thunder Punching me. There it is. Okay, they're going to target Fini instead. That's still fine. Yeah, Stack's just in a really weird spot right now in this game. That should be AV, right? Given how much we did there. Yep, we're still faster than Stakataka with both of these, so... Yeah, that's expected, but get to just 100% confirm that. We're just going to Rock Slide. That's going to activate our policy now. Great. It's a lot of damage though, so that's a little bit scary, but that's fine. Especially with Comfey in the back, because I can just heal it all back up. So this next turn, I like just protecting Yveltal and then pivoting Fini out into Incineroar. They might opt to try to set up a Trick Room at this point, though, which is interesting. If I'm confident I can take a Thunder Punch, then it's actually better to just switch Fini out and heal up outright here. Thunder Punch and -1 Rock Slide is what I meant to say. I think we can afford to go for that. I guess the risk is Thunder Punch crit para or Rock Slide crit. I just want to slightly cover for the Trick Room option this turn as well. Because the Thunder Punch isn't KOing with Intimidate, that's for sure. But like I said, I'm pretty sure that's AB Incin. Even if they set up Trick Room though, Calyrex is going to really struggle against my Incin. Okay, they offer Flare Blitz. Nice. Pretty good damage there, but not enough to KO. We'll heal back a ton from this. I guess the problem is if Rock Slide still KOs, but even if Rock Slide KOs, it's actually probably fine, right? We don't KO with Oblivion Wing, but that's also okay. Because we're going to heal back a ton here. Yeah, nice. And they go for Rock Slide. Yveltal actually dodges it, so I don't think that would have KO'd, but it certainly would have given my opponent like another out with the potential critical hit. So, very lucky dodge here, and ultimately the RNG has been very favorable for us in this matchup, so yeah, lucky. Okay, in this position, now what do we want to do? Stakataka has only revealed Rock Slide right now. It can still potentially Trick Room. We have Fake Out on Incin, and surely they have Calyrex as their fourth. I guess it could be Lele, but Lele in the back wouldn't actually be that much of an issue. I'm fine to just Oblivion Wing the Incineroar here, and actually we have Close Combat, so yeah, we can just Close Combat Stakataka with Tailwind expiring here. It should just be a double KO. I definitely have to acknowledge that I got pretty lucky in this episode, though. I don't know. I mean, even if Rock Slide KOs us there, though, I feel like we still win the game because I just go out into Fini and then I just Moonblast Incineroar, Close Combat Stakataka. And I don't think you're ever reading Close Combat from Incineroar. It's just such an obscure move that is specifically on this team to help out against Pokemon like Stakataka. Because it just gives you a burst of damage that your opponents otherwise aren't expecting. So... yep, the last one's going to be Calyrex, but you just can't... there's so little Calyrex can do in this matchup, unfortunately. Oh, wow, they didn't even bring it. It's honestly probably the right decision, to be honest. That's water. Either way, it doesn't matter. What we can do here is just Sucker Punch, because at this point, Comfey should finish off the game in itself. So, yeah, I'm just going to Sucker Punch here and go for a U-turn. Yeah. Comfey Draining Kiss. Like, Urshifu can't heal itself, so this in itself already does a good amount of damage. And you can only strike one thing at a time. So, with Fini in the back as well, we can obviously just Moonblast. You're going to target Yveltal, that's fine. I'm not even sure they KO. 80 down to 41. So if they do 39 again, we'll actually survive. And they actually do less than that, too. Well, okay. The reason I went for the Sucker Punch there is just because it's guaranteed damage. And in a late game position, you typically don't want to risk... like, you just want to get guaranteed damage when you know the game is basically won. We had built enough a big enough lead here where it's like, yeah, we probably could have just clicked Oblivion Wing, but it's a good habit to get into where you just go for like guaranteed safe damage versus risking getting crit there, right? Or sorry, not getting crit, just fainting. So now we can just Oblivion Wing and Draining Kiss. They're just gonna Aqua Jet Yveltal probably, but Draining Kiss should be a 2-hit KO onto Urshifu. If not a KO, but no, it's bulky enough to take this, right? No, it's not. Alright, I gotta give... that's because it was a crit. Yeah. I would think without the crit they survive, but the key thing here is whether or not Yveltal would have survived Rock Slide after the Intimidate at around 50-55%. Pretty sure the answer is yes, considering that it took less than that even before the Intimidate. But like I said, we dodge a potential crit opportunity there with the play that I made. So, yeah. Definitely a fun set of games. I think, like, overall, I'm not super happy about how I played today. You know, we netted a bunch of wins, but Game 1 I obviously made a careless mistake forgetting about Psychic Terrain. Game 2, it wasn't a very easy matchup, and I took kind of a high variance route in going for the play I did into Xerneas, and it worked out, but I don't know. I feel like my game plan should have been better, and Fini probably would have been a better adjustment over Comfey. I didn't correctly assess that in team preview. Game 3, it felt okay. I just, like... feel like maybe I could have reduced the variance a little bit more because that one turn with Yveltal, if we get flinched, or sorry, if we get crit, maybe things are actually dangerous. And I do want to quickly double check the Rock Slide math onto Yveltal because, yeah, if it could have KO'd even after the Intimidate, that actually would have been really ugly for us. So I want to take a look real quick. So, looking at the calc here, this is actually really wild. So, assuming they're Brave, just max attack Stakataka, which is pretty likely, against our Yveltal spread here, we had 89 HP, and Yveltal actually faints one of the 16 times, not including the chance of a critical hit. And so, yeah, that was not a guaranteed survival. That was actually a lot closer than I expected. And if you take away that Intimidate, I think they had a slightly higher roll with the first Rock Slide. I think they did like 126 damage here, so they were on kind of the upper bound. If you do anything lower than that, then you can't ever KO. But point being is, yeah, there was actually a very slight risk in that specific turn. They also made the good call to Flare Blitz, by the way, because Flare Blitz actually does more than Thunder Punch in that position because of the same type attack bonus. So they basically went all in on that turn, and we were lucky enough to, you know, dodge the Rock Slide. If the Rock Slide connects, they have a 1/16 chance basically to actually win the game from that position. Given that they had Urshifu over Calyrex in the back, I think we're still in a pretty fine position because Incineroar's close combat super strong, and then Comfey plus Fini match up really well into Urshifu as well. So I think we would have still been in a fine spot even if that Rock Slide had connected and gotten the maximum roll, but that was honestly helpful to know because I thought there was no chance we were fainting to a Rock Slide, but yeah, this goes to show like how there is slight risk, and if you don't know your damage calcs 100%, especially if you don't know your opponent's spread, right? You typically assume the worst case scenario. But yeah, there was like the smallest possible chance for Stakataka to actually get the KO onto Yveltal there. But Yveltal managed to just avoid it outright and, you know, make the game basically a guaranteed win from that position. So definitely had some fun with this one. Like I said, I think I could have played a fair amount better in all of the games. Like game one, once again, I mean, it was all good until the Sucker Punch into the terrain. So just switching in Fini that turn would have been better, and it maybe accelerated the game pace a little bit. But we had such a big lead that didn't really matter there. Game 2, like I said, I think Fini is better over Comfey. And then in Game 3, yeah, I kind of think a little bit about where Game 3 could have gone better. Because like we shouldn't have put ourselves in a position where we could have lost our Yveltal to a critical hit or a high damage roll. Like, the odds of them getting a crit on either attack or a high damage roll there is obviously really, really slim, but it's a non-0% probability. So maybe utilizing our Incineroar better, especially because we had close combat, might have been better. Like, I was willing to just Oblivion Wing with Yveltal, but maybe I could have just switched it out, brought my Ints in first, take care of their Stakataka, then conserve Yveltal for the late game, especially with the amount of damage they actually had into Yveltal. So I'm thinking it was probably not the smartest play for me to just attack with it, but I was thinking they were going to activate the Weakness Policy with Incineroar, not the Stakataka. So then I was expecting to be able to basically deal more damage into Incin and then KO it the subsequent turn. So that didn't go fully according to plan, but yeah. Either way, fun start to the season, and it's funny, we didn't really get to fully utilize like Comfey Yveltal in every game, but it was super good, and that first game I think is the perfect demonstration of how you don't need to lead it, but still potentially set it up and just sweep your opponent in the end game. So thanks so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to answer the question of the day. Good luck as you try to climb the brand new ranked season, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.